downloaded the Buckeye Leafcast with your host, Andrew T. Evans, with special guest, Chris Stefanick.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's another edition of the Buckeye Leafcast. Thanks for downloading this edition of the show with your hosts. I am Mr. Andy Evans, rocking the other side of the microphone. He's rumbling, stumbling, absolutely traveling around. He's a rambling man. No idea what I'm talking about right now. But he is the Intergalactic Buckeye Fan all over the friggin' place. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Mr. Chris Stefanick.
Andy. Hey, just like I predicted, a dominating performance in all phases of the game for our Buckeyes,
Oh, yeah. Yep, you called it, sir. You called a dominating 48-3 win by the Buckeyes, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was verbatim.
Yeah, pretty much. Verbatim. I nailed it, right? Yep.
Oh, my goodness, Christopher, I tell you what, if anybody could be more wrong, it's the two of us. And I'll be honest with you, Chris, 100% for certainty, for sure, I know this. I know absolutely nothing about this Ohio State team right now.
Right.
I'm going to tell you an unbelievable dominating performance by the Buckeyes on Saturday. Final score, 13th ranked Ohio State, 48, the 12th ranked Michigan State Spartans 3. Yes, folks, Michigan State did not score a single touchdown. And the surprising thing about that win, Chris, and I know you are going to break it down for me here in a minute, was that Ohio State did it by running roughshod over one of the nation's best rushing defenses. Michigan State came into this game only allowing 87 yards per game. Only 3 times all year had they allowed more than 100 yards on the ground, the most ever coming into yesterday, 182 against Notre Dame. And that included Notre Dame's dynamic tailback, Josh Adams, who had been running roughshod himself over opposing defenses for most of the season. They held him under 100 yards in that game back in September. Yesterday, Ohio State piled up 335 yards on the ground and had two individual tailbacks with over 100 yards. Mr. J.K. Dobbins, of course, and our boy, Mike Weber Jr. had the game of his career, 162 yards on only 9 carries, 2 touchdown runs, Chris, one for 47 yards, which was the first carry of the game for Mike Weber Jr., and then later on there in the second quarter, took another one, 82 yards for a score. Absolutely dominating performance by the Buckeyes. And once again, Chris, I've got no idea about this team. I have no clue. When I tell them to run, they pass. And they throw all over one of the nation's best passing defenses a few weeks ago in Penn State. I tell them to pass, and they run. And they run all over one of the nation's best rushing defenses in Michigan State. Chris, what the hell is going on with these Buckeyes? But don't get me wrong. I'm not going to argue when you win the ball game 48-3.
Yeah, I mean, that was domination. The 3 points they had was on a pick from JT Barrett. I mean, I think honestly, as fun as it is to talk about the offense, the defense was even more dominating the offense. I mean, the defense just completely shut them down, controlled the line of scrimmage, and threw a shutout versus a team that was ranked higher than Ohio State, the number 12 team in the country, shut them out. It's just unbelievable to me that, on both sides of the ball, just sheer domination. Both sides of the ball dominated the line of scrimmage. Like you said, the running backs, best performance by the running backs since, we had Ezekiel Elliott in the fold.
Yeah.
While neither of us predicted this outcome last week, right? One of the things that we were both calling for was give the stinking ball to the running backs. It's
right. In
the last 5 losses for Ohio State, JT Barrett had more carries than the running backs. And it's like, what are you doing? It's like J.K. Dobbins has 8.5 yards a carry versus Iowa, and he gets 6 carries. It's like, hand him the frickin' ball. Well, finally, Urban has learned his lesson. And he said that after this game, he said he made a mandate that the running backs get the more carries. So, cause after the Iowa game, and he was questioned about this, he was saying stuff. He's like, well, we take what the defense gives us. So we run the zone read, and if they, if they take away the running back, then the right read is for the quarterback to take it. But I'm like, well, then don't call the zone read. If that's what it means, why allow the defense to dictate to you what it wants you to do? That makes no sense. And he just kind of kept saying that during the week, and I'm like, oh, he's not learned his lesson. He's not learned his lesson. Well, come to find out, he didn't want to reveal to Michigan State that he had learned his lesson, and that he was mandating to the coaches, to Kevin Wilson and company, more carries for the running backs, some direct handoffs, some direct pitches, and boy, those two looked just phenomenal in this game. And it's in week 1, J.K. had 29 carries. So I don't know if you remember that. He had 29 carries in that flashing
181 yards. Yeah, absolutely.
That amazing debut versus Indiana. Well, he was only getting 11 carries a game since then, until this week.
Yep.
So he didn't quite get 29, but he got a lot more than 11. So,
he got 3 times as many as he got last week.
Exactly.
Finished up with 18 carries, 124 yards on Saturday against Michigan State.
Right. So, yeah, I guess, better late than never. Meyer finally gets it right. And, this 335 yards rushing was the most by Ohio State since they went for 410 versus Rutgers in 2016. So,
wow.
8 yards per carry versus a team that, like you said, was number 3 in the country versus the run. Pretty spectacular.
Well, and you just touched on it, too. This wasn't just a dominating performance by the offense, dude. This was a dominating performance by the defense. Held Michigan State to a season-low 195 total yards. Brian Lewerke, dude, all day, running for his life, was making a bunch of bad throws. Ended up going 18 of 36, 131 yards, no touchdowns, threw 2 interceptions. Also, the Buckeyes caused him to fumble the ball. So Brian Lewerke, 3 turnovers in this game, and boy, the defensive line just dominating. And it wasn't just the defensive line. I mean, it was everybody. Coverage, sacks. The Buckeyes ended up with tying a season high with 6 sacks, had a season high 57 sack yards, ended up 9 total tackles for loss, 60 total tackle for loss yards. Once again, forcing 3 turnovers in the game. Boy, the defense was just on fire yesterday.
Yeah. I mean, it was unbelievable. And, even Damon Arnett, who's been terrible in pass coverage, was doing the coverage. Honestly, I think the story of the day on the defense, from a player personnel perspective, the overall story was just how dominant they were. But the story of the day was the 2 starting linebackers being out, Booker and Baker.
Yep.
And you remember they were just absolutely awful. I mean, just atrocious versus Iowa. They're out. And I remember I texted you, in the first quarter, and said, will this before I even saw the, one play of football, I was like, maybe this is addition by subtraction because those guys were terrible. I'm like, I don't know that they could possibly play any worse. If that's really what our linebackers look like, we might as well get the young guys in there, Borland and Harrison, and let them take their lumps and grow up because the current guys, the incumbents, are terrible. Well, they came in, and it really was addition by subtraction. I mean, Borland played great. He led the team in tackles. He had a sack, a couple tackles for loss.
Yep.
Malik Harrison and Worley both had a sack. Shiano, I mean, I gotta hand it to the coaches. Versus Iowa, the coaches were absolutely terrible. I mean, Shiano got completely schooled by Brian Ferentz. Well, in this game, he was blitzing. He hasn't blitzed pretty much the whole year, but he was blitzing pretty regularly, mixing them in, and hence, all of the linebackers getting sacks. And
first sack of the game was on a blitz from weak side by Malik Harrison.
Right. So I mean, a full effort on all sides. Offense, defense, coaches. Just really, really pleased with what I saw.
Yeah, Tough Borland, 11 tackles, 8 solo, 2 for loss, including a sack. Malik Harrison was third on the team with 6 tackles. As you mentioned, a sack. Chris Worley, fourth on the team with 5 tackles, had a sack. Our boy Eric Smith came in for an injured Damon Arnett, who did not return to the game. I believe that was like in the second quarter. He ended up second on the team, Chris, 7 tackles for Eric Smith. So the guys that had been benched or were backups came in and played one of the damn greatest games they probably had all year. And that was just unbelievable to see. And Tough Borland after the game said, hey, that's just what we pride ourselves on at Ohio State. It's next man up. When you get your opportunity, you better get in there and you better make the most of it. And boy, did those 3 ever.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was a great performance. And, I mean, I had written off Eric Smith. I mean, I don't know.
So did I.
He did not look good early in the year, but I mean, he looked slow.
No.
He looked out of position, but he really played well. It was probably his best game as a Buckeye,
I'd say so. Absolutely. Yeah. So, tell me, in watching the game, I mean, usually I like to get your feedback, kind of, you like to pick apart X's and O's, break things down. Was there anything that stood out to you both, good and bad? I mean, there wasn't much bad, quite frankly, that happened yesterday. I'm sure you could probably nitpick on a couple of things, maybe go on a classic rant or two, as you now like to do. Yeah, kind of break some things down as to what you saw and why it was Ohio State so damn successful from an X's and O's point in completely clobbering the Spartans.
Well, one of the things you have to keep in mind is this team, and this hasn't changed the whole year, is they're one of the most talented teams in the country. I mean, if you can find 2 rosters out there that are more talented than Ohio State, good luck. Because it's pretty much Ohio State and Alabama have the most talent of anybody out there. So they've had the talent the whole time. But what's been happening? Versus Penn State, to be honest, they doubled up Penn State. I mean, Penn State is probably a top 10 team, certainly a top 15 kind of team, but they doubled them up in yardage and first downs. And did it come down the last play? Well, because of mistakes. I mean, there's mistake after mistake after mistake, and they've been doing that all year long. So this game started, whenever I'm taking my notes on the game, there's certain things I'll write down, and like this one, they came out and there's that high snap. Remember that high snap and JT?
Oh, yeah.
JT,
mm-hmm.
It's hard to blame it on JT because the snap was really high. But at the same time, I felt like if he gave a little better effort, it probably wouldn't have went back 15 yards or whatever it was. But,
he kind of loafed after the ball. I was a little surprised. I mean, it was at one point, it's like, dude, hop on the ball. What are you doing?
Just loafing after it. Just even it getting over his head. If you look at the replay, it wasn't like untouchable. You know what I mean? Like he could have grabbed it. Like if JT gets if JT's prepared, let me put it this way. If JT knows that ball's coming high, it doesn't go over his head. He catches it. You know what I mean? Like it was not uncatchable. It's like if you're a receiver and you throw a ball, you're like, oh, that was uncatchable. Or you're like, well, it's kind of high, but he could have grabbed it if you would hope that he would have been able to grab a ball like that kind of thing. Well, it's like JT could have had that. Still, it's hard to blame it on him because he's expecting it in his chest, and clearly Price had a high snap. But so, anyways, that's kind of beside the point. My point was, I'm like, here we go again, and I started writing down the mistakes in the game, and you know how far my list got? I mean, like the list would have been like 10, 20 points long. I had 3 things written down. There was a high snap and 2 picks. That was really the only mistakes. And you know what? There's something on here that's kind of like the reverse of a mistake, and that's they only had 2 penalties in the game. 2 penalties, Andy, and they were like one of the 120th in the country or something like that in penalties coming into this game.
I was wondering why the game went so quick, not only because they were running the ball so well, but I guess that's another thing. There weren't as many penalties called. Let's face it, time stops and you have to move the ball back and the chains and stuff when a penalty's called. That's a great point. Didn't even think about that.
Now, I guess, now that I think about it, one of those penalties probably should have been on here as a mistake, and that was the Draymond Jones targeting. Targeting is a pretty big mistake because you give them 15 points plus you lose a starter for, 3 quarters. And the Draymond Jones one was just dumb. I counted on the replay, it was like 2.5 to 3 steps after the ball was out and hit the guy. I'm like, dude, you just can't do that. You cannot do that. And They're going to call it every time. But anyways, I don't mean to get off on a tangent here. There's just so many things to talk about. It's so easy to go off on a tangent. But
hey, no, please. Your rants are becoming classic here, sir. We need a rant or two.
I'll get to one in a minute here. But
all right.
So you asked, the original question was, why did they dominate them so much? So first of all was talent. And number two was they didn't make mistakes like they've been in previous games. So when you've got that much talent, they come to play, and they don't make mistakes, they could beat anybody. Now, they come out and they come to play, but they're making a ton of mistakes, then, you're coming down to fourth quarter versus the good teams like Penn State's, right? You don't come to play and you make a bunch of mistakes, you get your ass beat by, probably a mediocre to good Iowa team, So, I mean, that's kind of the difference, They came to play, they've got superior talent, and they didn't make any mistakes. So those were the big things that I saw.
Well, and after the game, several players were saying, yeah, we were motivated this week to play. We were pissed off. And I can't sit here and help, and Meyer said it, some of the guys said it after the Iowa game. No, there was no hangover from Penn State. There wasn't. After seeing what we saw yesterday, I have a tendency to think that there indeed was a hangover from that crazy comeback win over Penn State in the loss against Iowa. I think when they got down, they completely gave up. And they thought, we can't do this again. We cannot do this for a second week in a row. We need to come out fast. We need to come out strong. We need to come out angry. And we need to punch Michigan State in the mouth. And we need to do it in a way that's going to show people we are still one of the best teams in the country. And we can effectively run the football. We can basically do whatever we want to do to you on whatever day we want, and we're going to do it, and you're going to bend over, and you're going to like it. And that's exactly what they did to Michigan State's defense yesterday. I mean, Chris, before the game, the last few weeks, seriously, I'm completely flummoxed that when I say, hey, don't stand back in the pocket and throw, they do it against one of the nation's best passing defenses and win the game. Don't hand the ball off and run. This isn't the week to do it. Let's let JT sit back in the pocket and throw, because their rush defense is clearly better than their passing defense, and that's of course from Michigan State. And what do? They run like crazy. So it's just that mental mindset. We talked about it. Urban Meyer, he is a master at getting in people's heads, getting these kids prepared, and that's just what I think we saw coming into that game on Saturday, was the fact that he just got these guys on another level. Mike Weber said after the game that basically he got them, he just stripped them back down for that week of practice. Stripped them down, started from scratch, square one, and there you go. So Ohio State and Urban Meyer have proven basically if we want to do it, we're going to do it. And it was unbelievable to see that result, and that they just completely embarrassed Michigan State's defense.
Yeah. And, they were doing stuff that I didn't even think would work. Like, for example, the side-to-side game. So that's, something I did a famous rant earlier this year on the side-to-side plays. So and I'm like, stop doing it. Those do not work. And
yeah. And they ran that play, I'm not going to say to perfection, but they did. They ran it quite well. And I think it was because of the running game working so well, they were able to get those passes out to the flat, get their speedy guys in space like Campbell and Dobbins, and they made it work. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I'm not sure why it works, but I tracked, that was one of the things I tracked. And so here's the plays. They had 7 yards to Dobbins, 30 yards to Paris Campbell, which, by the way, welcome back. That was 30 yards, and the refs even missed a face mask on that one, so it should have been like a 45-yard play. They had a 14-yard play action pass to Baugh. It was a play.
I'm trying to think of.
Yeah, they did a play action and then went to the side, which I don't recall really seeing that before. It's usually just real quick. They try to they snap it back and real quick go to the side. There was the.
Okay, was that early in the game?
Then you got
Okay, I do remember that.
You remember
now.
the 12-yard Dobbins TD was actually like a little side-to-side throw.
Oh yeah, he hit him right out there in the flat, and Dobbins had to make some moves to get in the end zone, but he sliced and weaved his way in there. Nice little 8-yard score for him, for sure.
And then he had 2 to ball, which actually did not really they worked. The end result was good, but it probably shouldn't have. I'll explain that to you. So he throws the ball, and the defender had him for no game. The ball just like drove him down the field and ended up turning it into a 6-yard gain. So that was one of them. And then there was another one that the defender stopped the ball for a 1-yard gain, but there was a face mask on it. So it ended up being like a 16-yard gain. So it's like every single play was the shortest one was 6 yards. And then after that, it was like 12, 14, 16, 30 yards. It should have been a 45-yarder to Paris Campbell, and so on. And a couple play actions in there. So actually that one where they got the face mask on ball was also another one that was a play action. So they were doing some different stuff that they haven't done all year. The play action and then going to the side. We saw a shovel pass. I don't remember seeing a shovel pass this year.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, whoa, here's a completely new wrinkle. That was cool.
So, just well done. But I mean, I think, I don't know that so much that it was Kevin Wilson and Urban Meyer, out Xing and Oing D'Antonio. It was pretty much the Ohio State offense. They were just executing. I mean, they controlled the line of scrimmage. Billy Price was, driving his man off the ball, looked like an All-American out there. The guards, both Knox and Jordan, were run blocking like crazy. I mean, Jordan hasn't been the best in pass block this year, but boy, could get it done in run blocking. And it was nice, and Knox was out there doing it well. And Prince as well. Prince had an Olay block, on a pass protection earlier in the game, and I was like, oh God, here we go. But on run blocking, he's good. He gets the job done run blocking out there. And, they controlled the line of scrimmage. And when you do that, good things happen.
Good things did happen. Once again, final score 48-3. And, should we pick on JT a little bit? I shouldn't say pick on him, but 14-21 through the air, 183 yards and 2 touchdowns. Also had 9 carries, which was the same amount that Mike Weber had. 9 carries for JT, 55 yards, and 2 scores as well, which was the same number as Mike Weber. However, 2 interceptions. You mentioned one of them before, and that led to Michigan State's only score, a field goal there at the closing seconds of the first half. But just when Ohio State had a little bit of momentum, they had all of the momentum, but Damon Webb with an interception takes it down deep in Michigan State territory, and then like a play or two later, JT turns around and going to, I believe it was Ben Victor in the end zone there, a little corner fade route, and threw a second pick of the game. So, this was not a performance, that people are going to look back on, and I think neither, rip on nor congratulate JT for. I think it was just kind of an average day for him, but that one pick, both picks actually looked a little bit dangerous to throw. But overall, what did you see out of him?
Yeah, I mean, the picks were not good picks. Sometimes, not that any pick is good, but you know what I mean. There's sometimes you're throwing it up,
sure,
and it's in a spot where the defender and the wide receiver fight over it, and sometimes the defender just makes an amazing play. This wasn't one of those. This was one where it's like, ooh, really? Ouch. So yeah, not liking that too much, but it's hard to argue with the end result. One of the things I always track as well is the deep balls, just because JT was just so bad at it versus, remember Oklahoma was really bad at it, and early in the year, I mean, I remember before he went on that stretch versus those cupcake teams, his completion percentage was like just awful on throws of 20 yards or more down the field. So I was kind of keeping an eye on that. Well, he had that one pass interference throw to Dixon in the end zone was as good of a throw as he's made all year, and that was definitely a deep one. So I like to see that. He completed a deep ball to, actually no, he didn't complete it. There was another pass interference to Johnny Dixon late in the first half, but that one he actually underthrew it, and the defender couldn't find the ball. So I think that's the reason why it was a pass interference, is because like Dixon had to come back for it, and then the defender like just didn't turn around and kind of just got tangled up with him.
I kind of personally, I thought that was a garbage pass interference call. I mean, the ball overthrown, the defender's going out, and then the receiver kind of has to run back into the defender to try and catch an underthrown ball. To me, that's not pass interference, but apparently that's not the way it's written in the rule book. So it was called, but I know what play you're talking about.
So then, the one was the pick to KJ Hill was a deep ball that he just underthrew KJ Hill. And if he puts it in front of the receiver, considering how good KJ Hill is, it's probably complete, and instead it's a pick. And then he had that 48-yard TD to Victor, which that was a little underthrown too. I mean, I'll take the results. And a great play by Victor is a highlight of him breaking free of the guy clinging to his legs to get in the end zone.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
Yep, that was great. That was great.
On deep balls, if you're counting at home, basically it was inaccurate on 3 of the 4. So, inaccurate on 3 of the 4, threw a couple picks. I'll take the results. I mean, I'll tell you one thing that JT did well is he had them playing at a really high tempo, which hasn't always been the case. I don't know how much of that is JT and how much of it's the coaches encouraging them to keep the pace up, but he had them playing at a really well tempo. When they're doing that, typically they look good. So I was overall, I'm not going to complain about how he looked.
Yeah, like I said, one of those games that you're not going to look back on and go, oh, God, what a terrible game, or, man, he played awesome. I think it was just he was effective enough, and because the ground game was so dominant, we didn't really need JT. I mean, as crazy as it sounds, like I said, 9 carries, 55 yards, had 2 scores. But JK and Mike Weber, just absolutely on point. The offensive line, came together. And like you said, there was a couple of times here and there, things got a little dicey, especially there on the right side with Isaiah Prince. But overall, just absolutely, unbelievable performance. And JT, I think this was a game, thankfully, that they could kind of pull him back a little bit. They were able to rely on the running game so well. Now they're going to have Illinois coming up this weekend, which should hopefully be another day off, if you will, for JT. Right. Some game they don't have to totally rely on him to get the job done, and get him ready for the Donnybrook up there in the Big House in a couple of weekends. So, do you want to go on a rant, sir, before we conclude our Michigan State recap?
Yeah, why not? I'll do a rant and then just point out some other good stuff. So this is a follow-up. Right. This is a follow-up on a previous rant. This is like rant part 2. And it's on the short kickoffs. Okay. So in case you're not following along, Ohio State does this thing where rather than just like trying to get a touchback, they do like a pooch kickoff to the left side of the field and try to pin you inside the 25. And my argument against this is the risk reward on it is terrible, because when you do it right, you usually are getting the guy about like the 20-yard line or so. And so you're only gaining 5 yards versus if you just kick it out of the back of the end zone. But if you do it wrong, they can get out to the 40-yard line, or heck, we've had a few for touchdowns this year, right? So it can be, it's just like the risk reward just doesn't seem well. It's like if I do it really good, I get 5 yards. If I do it really bad, I give up 6. It's like, so after the game today, last week it looked good. This week it looked good. Meyer's own words. The kicking game was outstanding. Outstanding, Andy. This is what he called it. He called it outstanding.
Uh-oh. I have a feeling you're going to disagree.
This just kind of makes my point. This is what outstanding looks like. So he had a touchback, 25-yard line. He got them on the 4-yard line on one. Pretty awesome. One play got them on the 4-yard line. 16-yard line, 27-yard line, 22, 22, 27, and then one went out of bounds for the 35. This is outstanding. This is about as good as you can do. This is about as good of a game with this many kicks that I've seen them do. So this really was outstanding for them. I'm not arguing that it wasn't outstanding. It was outstanding. For this strategy, this is what outstanding looks like. You know what that outstanding averages out to be? The 22-yard line. You put those all together. Outstanding, Andy, means they're 3 yards better than just kicking it out the back of the end zone. That's what outstanding looks like. What about just a normal week? What about a bad week? So what this means is a normal week, an outstanding is 22. A normal week is probably like 28, 27, something. You know what I mean? It's worse than just kicking out the back of the end zone. And a bad week, you're giving up touchdowns. So if outstanding means you get it at the 22-yard line, that just underscores my point of the risk reward for this strategy makes no sense at all. Outstanding means you're 3 yards better. That's your upside is 3 yards better, Andy. Your downside is a touchdown. What are you doing?
So do you really feel that Meyer's summation of the kickoffs on Saturday truly was outstanding? Because I don't know, I'm kind of catching a little bit of a hint of sarcasm in your voice that you truly don't think that is outstanding. And I get your point, and I see it.
Well, to me, it was outstanding for that strategy. That's the best I've seen him do it.
Well, I was going to say,
that's the best I've seen him do it, and so it pretty much was outstanding. But my problem is not that wasn't an outstanding that was outstanding execution of that strategy. My problem is that strategy is not good because you're risking touchdowns when you could, if you just recruit. Meyer's like, whoa, because somebody said that to him last week after multiple weeks of 2 straight weeks in a row of giving up touchdowns. Somebody said, why not just kick it out of the back of the end zone? And he's like, well, it's not that easy to do that. You got to get a guy that can do it every time, and we don't have a guy that can do that. And I'm like, well, then go get a guy who can do it. There are guys with the legs that can do it. You're just not recruiting them. You're recruiting guys that are like pooch specialists that are aim it. For him, it's not about just blasting it out of the back of the end zone. It's got to have a hang time, and it's got to be aimed correctly. It has to fall. And this is part of the reason why this strategy sucks, is because if you're off on any of that, if you don't get enough hang time or you don't aim it correctly, and it's instead of being on that left side of the field, it's more to the right, or it's not deep enough, then it ends up not working out well. But if you're just blasting it as hard as you can, if you got a big enough leg, that works pretty darn good, So they would just have to find somebody with a big enough leg, and offering a scholarship to Ohio State and a chance to play for titles and all that. To me, I just don't see why they don't do that. So I mean, it's after a victory like this, 48-3, a victory that was the worst loss in Mark D'Antonio's career as a head coach. A victory that was, it's the biggest margin of victory for Ohio State in a game against the Spartans. The previous high was 42.
Yep.
And that was in 1979. They won 42-0.
Yeah.
It's,
time ago.
It seems like in a game where, they more than doubled up their opponent, an opponent that was ranked ahead of them. It seems like it's like, this is really kind of a weak thing to be complaining about. And you're probably right when you say that. You're probably right. But
well, you know what? Sometimes we just got to find something to nitpick on. We're Buckeye fans. We do this kind of thing.
But now I think
I will say this, the coverage on punt returns I noticed yesterday when KJ Hill decided to return a punt, he had absolutely nowhere to go. 3 punt returns, 3 total yards yesterday. He did have an 8-yard punt return. However, a couple of those he got tackled for loss on. So I'm sitting here thinking, wow, is this the next thing that Urban and Kerry Combs have to take a look at, is giving a guy the ability to return a punt? Because I haven't seen them be very successful in punt returns at all this year.
Yeah, I don't know what you do about that. Yeah, I mean, Jalen Marshall used to be pretty good at it, so it's not like just.
Well, let's bring him back.
It's not that Urban knows. Yeah, he's got a couple of years of eligibility left, right? It's not that
right.
Urban doesn't know how to do this, but it's just not happening. I don't know. You'd think they've got lots of guys with explosion.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of that, here's another thing that's interesting, and this is one maybe. I don't know. Maybe I need to apologize for this. We'll see what you think. So
Don't apologize for anything, sir. Not on the Buckeye Leaf Cast. We don't issue apologies.
All right, so back in coming out, I think it was maybe spring or maybe it was summer camp. I don't remember when it was, but it might have been summer camp. Ohio State released. They did some timing of like who were the fastest players on the team, and it was running. I think people were doing. Yeah, I think they had 40 times, and they had like multiple guys with sub 4, and like one of the guys that was one of the fastest players on the team who had a fourth.
I know where you're going with this.
Was Mike Weber, and I'm looking at that, and I'm like, there is no way Mike Weber has a sub 4.4 time. There's just no.
Oh, we discussed that. We discussed it, and we were both like, we were like, this is a lie, this is fraudulent. He's only, they're literally putting his time in there just for whatever, the sake of making him feel better
like
or something.
Got a quick trigger finger, or I don't know what it is. I'm like, but there's no way he's a 4.3. There's no way like all these players. I mean, it was basically like the fourth or fifth fastest guy on the team, and I'm like, I'm sitting here naming off like 10, 20 players that were not in that top 5 that I'm like, there is no way Mike Weber is faster than these 20 other guys, these wide receivers and defensive backs, and it's just I don't believe it. Seeing him on the field, I don't believe it. And then last week, they put him in there at kick returner, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Mike Weber is a kick returner? We don't have anybody more explosive on this team to put in there, and he did not look good as a kick returner. He did not look good at all. He didn't look good this week, he didn't look like a guy who could break one. But I'm watching on those 2 big runs, one of which was 82 yards, and there was plenty of time for the, athletic defensive backs of Michigan State to catch him, where he just outran everybody.
Just blew him out.
Like, that kind of looks like this, a 4.4 speed, maybe sub 4.4 speed. But on those 2 runs, I'm like, what is he really legitimately a 4.3 speed guy? He might be. I still am not sold on him as a kick returner because he hasn't looked good in the few attempts he's had. And, I'll gladly put Paris Campbell back there who, boy, if you want to talk about somebody who looks like they've got sub 4.4 speed, there's no questioning Paris Campbell has it. That guy looks like one of the most fastest guys I've seen at Ohio State, maybe since Teddy Gann. He's just blazing fast. But, maybe he might.
Let me tell you what.
If he really is legitimately 4.3 speed, which he kind of looks like he does have it, I can understand why the coaches put him back there as kick returner. They're like, hey, he's got the speed to break one if the oceans part, and he's been reliable as far as not putting the rock on the carpet. I'm not questioning that decision to put him back there at kick returner quite so much now that I'm starting to think that maybe he legitimately does have 4.3 speed, and I don't know. We just didn't see it before. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
When he on that, both runs, but especially that 82-yard run, because 47-yarder, when he busted through the line, he had like one guy to beat, and he put on a move, beat him, and I'm like, wow. That second run, however, when he got into the secondary and got to that second level, and there were some guys closing in, I'm with you. I thought, okay, he's going to get tackled for a loss here, or not a loss, I'm sorry. He's going to get tackled after a nice gain, and good run by him. And all of a sudden, he just hit a third level, and he was like, boom, I'm gone. And those guys, when he outran the defensive backs, I mean, everybody in the press box was just, you just kind of heard some mumbling going on, like, holy crap, can you believe what we just saw? Like, I cannot believe that. Unbelievable run. Is he finally healthy? And that was one of the things that Meyer touched on during the post-game press conference, was that, this is a kid. He's been dinged up by injuries. We finally feel that he is back, to 100%. And I think we saw that yesterday. I mean, maybe Mike Weber, came in out of high school a little dinged up, and that's why, and kept getting dinged up throughout the season last year, came into the season this year a little dinged up, but now, them kind of sliding him aside, letting him, run a couple times here and there to kind of get back into football form. it paid off in spades yesterday, and maybe finally we are seeing the Mike Weber Jr. that came out of Detroit Cass Tech High School a couple of years ago, as highly touted as he was. And yeah, just unbelievable. That 82-yard run completely blew me out of the water. And maybe indeed there is some truth to those times, because on those 2 touchdown runs, he proved it. He proved that I'm a sub 4.4 guy. And I'm sick and tired of hearing all of the complaints that I don't have explosive speed, that I'm not a shifty running back, that I don't have as many skills as J.K. Dobbins, and I'm not as good. I'm going to go out here and I'm going to prove today that I am as good, if not better, than J.K. Dobbins. And damn it, I'm one of the best running backs in the Big Ten. And it was just great to see. And I mean, numbers were just absolutely through the roof. 9 carries for 162 yards. I mean, that's a friggin' 18-yard average, Chris. And not taking anything away from Dobbins, he had twice as many carries. Finally got the rock as often as we were screaming for him to get the ball. 18 carries, 124 yards. That was almost 7 yards a clip. So, I mean, they were just going nuts. Just going nuts. But Mike Weber, definitely. I think, you know what? You're right. Maybe we should issue an apology to Mike Weber, because indeed the kid finally came out and had the game that I'm sure he knew, the coaching staff, Urban Meyer, knew he was capable of, and finally kind of put a little bit in the fans' pipes and said, go ahead, toke on that, while I'm busting 162 yards out today. Put that in your pipe and friggin' smoke it, folks. So, yeah, crazy. You're right. My hat's off to Mike Weber. Excellent game by him. And not to say that we were necessarily not on the Mike Weber bandwagon as far as wanting to see him succeed. Certainly we obviously we want to see all Buckeyes and young kids succeed. But yeah, it definitely came out and proved what I think we've all been waiting to see. And it was just a great performance by him.
I didn't think he was that fast. And
I didn't either. Prove me wrong.
I still like Dobbins better, and I agree with. I was glad to see that Meyer didn't say, "Oh, Weber's got the hot hand today. Look at these big runs he's getting," and give him the carries instead of J.K. He gave J.K. twice as many carries or something like that.
Twice as many,
that's
exactly.
about right. To me, it's like 2/3 of the carries should go to J.K., 1/3 to Weber, if not a little more than that, because. I think Weber is the better back, or I'm sorry, I said that wrong. J.K. is the better back. He's got speed, he's got power, and he's got the shiftiness that I've not really seen the shiftiness from Mike Weber, So Mike Weber, he maybe has that top end speed that we didn't think he had, but he displayed yesterday. And, he's got a little bit of power. Like he's a decent guy to bring in on, 3rd and 2. I kind of like Mike Weber in that role. But, Dobbins is still the better back. And how about this? Dobbins becomes only the 3rd true freshman to reach 1,000 yards in Ohio State history, joining Maurice Clarett and Robert Smith. Only the 4th freshman overall. And then you would include, if you include redshirt freshmen, and that would be one Mike Weber who did it last year.
Mike Weber. Yep. Thank you. I forgot to touch on that. Excellent point. Yeah. Yes. Saturday's game. J.K. Dobbins becomes only the 4th freshman in OSU history to run for over 1,000 yards in a season, 3rd true freshman, and also Billy Price now becomes the all-time starts leader in Ohio State history. Had his 51st start yesterday.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That was pretty cool. And,
Very cool.
And Dobbins, he did this without getting the carries that he should be getting. I mean, this is with like Meyer giving him 6 carries versus Iowa when he's getting 8.5 a game, right? 8.5 a carry. So, I mean, after having 29 versus Indiana and putting up ungodly amounts of yards, he got 11 carries per game for like the next X number of games. So, Meyer probably cost him about 400 yards up to this point by my math, by just not giving him the rock,
Oh my gosh. Yeah, this guy could have 2,000. I mean, maybe not that much, but I get what you're saying for sure.
But the running back depth chart looks pretty darn good, and they've got 1 or 2 good ones coming in next year as well. And we're not even talking about, Run DMC, Mario McCall. he was looking better than Mike Weber as well. And I've heard that, he's been injured, and I've heard the reason we're not seeing him is they're basically going to redshirt him. So he's getting a medical redshirt this year. And, played last.
Oh my God.
But I mean, he looked a lot better than Mike Weber, I thought. So the running back stable is just, full, as it should be at a place like Ohio State, as it should be.
Can you imagine? I mean, next year JT's going to be gone, and they're going to have either Haskins or Burrow back there, and just having more of a traditional rushing attack, kind of what they had there in the last 3 games of 2014 with Zeke and Cardale. Could you imagine, though? I mean, Mike Weber, if he comes back, which I'm assuming he will, he can leave after this year. This is technically his 3rd year out of high school after this season, but I don't see him leaving early for the pros. But Weber, Dobbins, DeMario McCall, and you have a guy like Antonio Williams, who is a 4-star guy who, come in and can give you some nice spot time, have at least 4 tailbacks to either run or throw the ball to, on top of some of the receivers that are going to be coming back next year. I mean, whew, boy, that's just going to be a dangerous offense, and especially just running the football with that much talent. Yeah, that's could be a sick year next year. I'm already talking about next year. Hell, we could still have at least 3 or 4 more games left here this season. So calm down, Andy. Let's get through this season first before we start looking over to next year.
Well,
but
I mean, there could be even 5. I mean, there are some people are saying that after, with the way things shook out yesterday across the college football scene, that Ohio State's not out. I mean, they're up to like number 8 in some of the polls. I think at the AP they're 8.
AP and coaches poll are out, and they are 8th in both of those polls. Now, will that equate as well into the college ball playoff committee poll? Well, we'll find out Tuesday night.
I think somewhere it was Vegas has them as now like a 33% chance to make the playoffs.
You're saying there's a chance?
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying there's a chance. It's still not a great chance, I don't think, but it's a chance, which after Iowa, I really didn't think there was any chance. I really didn't, but, that Notre Dame loss to getting hammered pretty much eliminates them. I mean, cause they're Ohio State obviously needs a lot of things to go in their favor. And a 1-loss Notre Dame was going to get in over a 2-loss Ohio State, even if Ohio State wins the Big Ten. But 2 losses, then it's like, okay, you got a 2-loss conference champion versus a 2-loss Notre Dame. And then you start looking, Notre Dame got hammered versus Miami. And now that Georgia lost, that loss that Notre Dame had to Georgia doesn't look quite as good. You know what I mean? So it helps build the case there. Stanford topping Washington, that was big to help things out. I mean, it's at this point, there's some interesting scenarios where Ohio State can get in there. You need, obviously the first most important thing they need to do is win these next 3 games in convincing fashion. But it's possible that they can get in there with a little bit of help. Because, the teams ahead of them, a lot of them still play each other. Ohio State still has Wisconsin who's ahead of them. And, it's not that crazy that they could get in. It was interesting. I was thinking about it. It sounds like one of the best things that could happen for Ohio State's chances to get in there is Alabama winning out. Because if you think about it, if Alabama gets a loss, let's say Alabama loses to Georgia in the SEC title game. Then you've got 1-loss Georgia SEC champs, they're in. You've got a 1-loss Alabama who's been in the title and not only been in the playoffs every year, but has like haven't they pretty much been in the title game every year? At least last year they were.
Well, I know they weren't in the initial year because Ohio State beat them in the semifinal. That's right. I forgot. Yes, the last 2 years. They have.
Been in the title game the last 2 years, winning one of them.
But they've made the playoffs all 3 years. They're the only school that's made the playoffs now all 3 years.
I mean, they've got the credibility that I think a 1-loss Alabama, whose only loss came to Georgia, who's looking pretty stout, I think they're in.
They could both get in. Both of those teams could get in. That's crazy.
But if Alabama wins out, I think at that point, Georgia would then have 2 losses. Does Auburn have 1 loss or 2 losses right now?
They've got 2.
So Auburn would have 3 if Alabama wins out. I think that, it makes it, I think a 1-loss Alabama that doesn't win the SEC gets in over a 2-loss Ohio State, that won the Big Ten. Last year, the committee has shown they will put in somebody who's outside, who's got 1 loss, who didn't win their conference, or got 2 that won their conference, a la last year, Ohio State and Penn State. So there is a precedent for that. So I think that would happen, especially a 1-loss non-conference champion that's got a lot of credibility, like Ohio State did last year, and obviously Alabama does this year. So you would want Alabama to win out. You would want, obviously Ohio State needs to win, and I think probably win big. If they're like squeaking out games versus Michigan and Wisconsin, that makes the case a lot harder. Probably doesn't hurt for Oklahoma to win out as well. And they have Alabama and Oklahoma as like number 1 and number 2. Probably want Miami to win out, because then that would mean that Clemson would get its 2nd loss. If Clemson wins out and Miami's only loss is to Clemson, then there's some question there. Do you put the 1-loss Miami in over a 2-loss Ohio State? You know what I mean? So there's a whole lot of scenarios where Ohio State doesn't make it. Let me just put
any given.
But there are, a fair number of scenarios where Ohio State does make it. So, I'm saying there's a chance.
Like Lloyd Christmas in Dumb and Dumber, folks, he's saying there's a chance. It might be 1 in a million, but damn it, it's still a chance. Or according to the website you looked at, Vegas odds, 33%. That's better than 1 in a million. I'll take 33% all day long.
It's not bad. It's really not.
That is not bad at all. And yes, to touch on your point, so let's just say the college football playoff committee has the exact same rankings as the AP and the Amway coaches, which has Alabama 1, Miami 2, Oklahoma 3, Clemson 4. Now, the other 3 teams ahead of Ohio State, because the Buckeyes are in at number 8, Wisconsin's 5, Auburn's 6, and Georgia's 7th. So Alabama, yes, beats Georgia in the SEC championship game. Georgia's got 2 losses. They're below Ohio State. Auburn summarily loses to Alabama in the year-end Iron Bowl. That gives Auburn 3 losses. They're below Ohio State. Wisconsin's probably going to win out, but play Ohio State as long as the Buckeyes win out in the Big Ten championship game. Ohio State gets a big win this coming Saturday over Illinois, gets a big win over Michigan on their field, goes into the Big Ten championship game, gets another big Big Ten championship win over the Badgers, and now all of a sudden they've got 2 losses. They've beaten Wisconsin, and Miami beats Clemson. Okay, now you've got Auburn with 3 losses, Georgia with 2 losses. Ohio State's only got 2 losses as a Big Ten champ and just beat a team that was a few spots ahead of them. Alabama, Miami win out. Miami beats Clemson, giving them 2 losses, and Oklahoma wins out. Folks, I'm telling you what, Chris, I agree with you. There's still a chance. I mean, it's a small chance, but if all of those scenarios play out. And thankfully this weekend, because we had 3 top 10 games going on, you knew at least 3 teams were going to be losing that were ranked ahead of Ohio State. And then fortunately, Stanford pulls off a nice little win against 8th ranked Washington to now get them out of the way, if you will. So things can keep happening. And this is any given Saturday, Chris, and anything can happen on a Saturday. You just never know. I mean, hell, Miami could lose whoever they play this upcoming weekend. And boy, let me tell you what, Miami, I was not sold on them to start throughout the year. I mean, they just did not look very good. They were squeaking by teams, barely getting by, and boy, the last couple of weeks, I mean, huge win over Virginia Tech. And then, of course, Saturday night, a huge stomping of Notre Dame, 41-8. So it looks like they've got Virginia, Pitt, And then, of course, it's already determined that they're playing Clemson in the ACC championship game. Boy, is that going to be a Donnybrook or what, dude? 2 top 4 teams playing for the ACC championship. That's going to be nuts. But you never know. Seriously, they could travel on the road to Pitt the week before the ACC championship game. Even Virginia playing them at home, they could be overlooking them now because the ACC championship set. They still got 2 weeks of football left, and you never know. They could get knocked off at some point. That's how insane this college football season has been so far.
I mean, that's why it's so popular. I mean, if you knew what was going to happen, like, it'd be boring. You know, there'd be no reason to watch, right? So it's like just because.
Well, and that's almost like the pros, you know, pretty much you know who's good, you know who's not. This team's got the better record. Yeah, occasionally you'll see a 1-4 team go beat a team that's 3-1 in the NFL. But traditionally, yeah, you know who the good teams are and, you know, and the same with college football. But actually, J.K. Dobbins made a great point about this on Saturday after the game. He said, here's the thing with the pros. No, it wasn't JK. I think it was, Nicky Bosa said it. Bosa was like, you know, here's the thing with the pros. You can lose 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 games throughout the season and still make it into the playoffs. In college football, if you more than 2, and I mean, at this point, there's never been a 2-loss team to make the top 4, in the 3-year history of the college football playoff. But if you lose at least 2 games, you're out. You're done. So every week, every game is important. In the pros, you can lose several games throughout the year and you still make the playoffs. And that's why I think also, Chris, that college football, it's not only that, but these are still athletes, student athletes, more like athlete students. Let's not, get too crazy on that. But at any rate, these are still kids, that are playing for free, and I'm throwing up the air quotes around that as I say it. But these are still student athletes playing the game for free, and with everything on the line each and every weekend, yeah, I think that's why we all love college football.
Yeah. Yeah, these guys don't go to college to play school. So.
And most of them probably don't, let's face it. I'm sure, yeah, we won't even get into that discussion, but there's still a chance. There's still an opportunity for Ohio State to get in. I'm not going to hold my breath, but I think right now if they just focus on, hey, let's win these next 2 games. In fact, screw that. Let's just focus on playing Illinois. Don't worry about Michigan. Play Illinois, win a nice solid game by about 4 or 5 touchdowns, and you continue to sit in the driver's seat for that Big Ten East Division title and an opportunity to go play an undefeated, hopefully 5th ranked, if not higher, Wisconsin team that if you win that, you're going to get possibly a shot to go play in the college football playoff. But once again, let's concentrate on Illinois this weekend. So, Chris, I'm sure that this Illinois preview is going to take about 30 seconds. They stink. Ohio State's good. What really is there else to say about this upcoming matchup against the Fighting Illini this weekend? This weekend,
we've got on the line the most prestigious prize in all of sports, the Illibuck.
Oh, you're right.
So,
the Illibuck.
So it's big time. And, when the Buckeyes take the field this weekend versus, the Fighting Lovie Smith. So, yeah, Ohio State hasn't lost to Illinois since 2007. And, Juice Williams is not coming through that door. So,
probably not.
I think.
If he does, I'm not sure he'd be eligible to play, but who knows? You could give him a pep talk, get Lovie, and the gang fired up for a big win over here.
I wonder what, the over-under would be for Ohio State's, just Ohio State's score. What would you put the over-under at? 50? 55? I could see them, knowing that they need to impress the committee, coming out and rolling up 60, even, maybe putting 70 on this team, because Illinois is that bad. Illinois is the worst team in the Big Ten right now. I mean, they are awful.
Yeah, they're, 2-7 overall. They have not won a single Big Ten game. Statistically speaking, they are the worst scoring offense in the Big Ten. averaging 16 points a game. They're the third worst scoring defense, giving up 28 points a game. Offense-wise, they're next to last in total offense. They're dead last in rushing offense. They're actually about middle of the pack in passing offense. But otherwise, pass efficiency, they're next to last. They've thrown 17 interceptions on the year to 8 touchdowns. So, offensively, they're just a horrible team. Defensively, total defense, once again, they're third to last. Scoring defense, they're third to last. I mean, rush defense, they're next to last. Pass defense, once again, they're about middle of the pack. But pass efficiency defense, they're next to last. They've allowed 16 touchdown passes against 8 interceptions. So this is just not a good Illinois team. There's the over-under, dude. What does Ohio State have to score to truly look great in the eyes of the committee? I mean, I think it'd have to be about another game like what they did against Michigan State, quite frankly. I don't think that they need to come out and score 75 points and win 75-2 or something crazy like that. I mean, I think that as long as they come out and, if it's a 58-7 game, if it's a 48-3 game, if it's a 42-7 game, I would put it right around 5 touchdowns. I think 5 touchdowns or more, and not giving up a lot of points. Like if they can turn around and pull an Iowa on Illinois and, win 55-24 where you allow 24 points, even though, that's a 31-point win, now you've kind of let the other team, a very bad offensive team, score 24 points against you. So I think they need to keep that number low. Don't allow Illinois more than 10 points max. And you come out and you at least score 5 or 6 touchdowns. So I'd say, a good 56-10 score would be solid in the minds of the committee.
It's funny you say that. So Illinois lost to Rutgers by 11 points. Illinois pretty much got hammered by Nebraska. What's the common thread between Rutgers and Nebraska? Ohio State put up 56 on both of those teams. They beat Rutgers 56-0. They beat Nebraska 56-14. And the fact that Illinois got easily worked by both of those programs, and then Ohio State did that to those. I mean, now you can't necessarily do that math because Michigan State beat Iowa 17-10, which makes me want to throw up a little bit, but but you know what I'm saying, though. I mean, it's like, I think 56, if Ohio State's putting 56 up on Rutgers and Nebraska, and those teams worked over Illinois, I think that, that's like the minimum is they need to get 56. I'd like to see them break 60. They got 62 versus Maryland, and Maryland's clearly a better team than Illinois. So, I'm wanting to see like a 62-7 kind of game, 62-10. That's 62-10 would make me feel good.
All right. So you're going to go 62-10. I'll say 56-10. I'll stick with that. But you know what? What Ohio State team are we going to see, Chris? Are we going to see an Ohio State team that is going to be overlooking after such a great win? They're going to be overlooking Illinois, and they're going to be looking forward to the Michigan game. And we see, a kind of another quote unquote trap game. I mean, Illinois is kind of one of those weird teams that, traditionally in the past, they have pretty much beaten up on Illinois. But occasionally they'll run into an Illinois team that presents a problem. Now, it really hasn't happened in the last few years, and I don't see it happening this coming Saturday. Illinois, the only team who has not won a Big Ten game all season long. I mean, this is just, boy, if Lovie Smith doesn't get fired after this year, I'm not sure when he'll get fired, because this has just been a dumpster fire for the Fighting Illini. So, but yeah, who knows? We could see Ohio State, play down a little bit and maybe win 35-7. Would that make you happy? If it's a 35-7 game, or, let's even get crazy and say it's 28-10,
No, that would not make me happy, but it's not going to happen, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
They will be fired up to get that Illinois. So Mark my words.
Okay, well.
Most prestigious prize.
There you go,
sports,
folks.
Eddie. All sports.
There you go, man. If anything is going to get these kids fired up, it's playing for a wooden turtle that was replaced by a live turtle that drowned in a frat house's bathtub here on the Ohio State campus one of the years. Hence why they went to the wooden turtle. Well, there you go, folks. This has been another edition of the Buckeye Leafcast. I appreciate you all downloading the show. And before we jump off the microphones, though, Mr. Stefanick, if you want to hit the peeps up out there, tell them a little bit more about you and what you're doing aside from the Leafcast.
Sure. So if you would like to get a little more Chris Stefanick in your life, and who would not want that, then come on over to choiceconversations.com and listen to my other podcast. Choice Conversations is a personal development podcast where I aim to help you in all areas of your life. So I'd love to have you. choiceconversations.com. Come on over.
And I believe they can hit you up on Twitter at ChoiceConvo as well, if I'm not mistaken.
You are correct, sir.
There you go. Hit them up. The Intergalactic Buckeye Fan talking about not just Ohio State football, but talking to you about what you can do to improve your life. I highly suggest it. I've subscribed now to Chris's emails. I'm getting in these very uplifting emails that you send out, Chris, and I've been reading them about, why you should be selfish or, why it's, not good to do certain things a certain way. And, it's been very cool to read, man, and I've enjoyed it. And I've been checking out, some of, your live broadcasts, should I say, on Facebook Live, and I love watching it, man. You're just, you're totally fun to watch, and I suggest seriously everybody checking out the Facebook page, choiceconversations.com. Hit him up on Twitter, let him know how he's doing. The Intergalactic Buckeye Fan, Mr. Chris Stefanick.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Andy. That means a lot.
Hey, you're my boy, Blue. You're my boy. It's also brought to you by Christie's Cleaning Services, LLC. It's not clean until it's Christy Clean. Be sure to visit her Facebook page at Christie's Cleaning Services, LLC. And this edition of the show brought to you by Columbus Wired, for your premier source for sports and beyond right here in the Central Ohio area. Check us out at columbuswired.net. So there you go, sir. Big win, great win to talk about, and I'm glad once again you took a few minutes out of your day to sit here and wrap a little OSU football, and let's hope that they pull down a big win before the game here in 2 weeks.
Sounds good.
On that note, let's leave them like we always do, sir. OH.
I-O.
Go Bucks!
I want to go back to Ohio State, to old Columbus town, to the stadium to hear the band by far